Hello friends, today's video is all about thread. A lot of you have asked me what all the numbers mean, what's 40 weight, 50 weight, 80 weight. So today you're going to learn more than you ever want to know about thread. I am definitely not an expert on thread, so don't take this as, written down in the quilting Bible. And I'm showing you this as for informational purposes, but from my standpoint as a sewer, quilter, if you do any other crafts, I don't know or not if this will apply to you. I'm just going to go through the basics of each of these threads and what they mean. I'm using the most popular thread on the market for quilters, which is Aurifil. Now, a lot of the other brands work in the same way where all the different numbers have a different color core. So a lot of this information will apply forward to those. Other companies have different size threads than what I have here. So this will just be a basic overview and help you hopefully understand what the differences are, what it all means, what the different sizes are. I've gotten a lot of those questions lately, thread questions. So I wanted to just address a few of those and hopefully I can help somebody out there. So, okay. So most of you that are quilters will probably recognize this one first and foremost. This is Aurifil's 50 weight thread, and this is the most common thread for piecing. So I'm going to put this back down for now though, and I'm going to show you all the threads and we'll get to that one eventually. So this one here is Aurifil's 12 weight. That is the largest thread. So threads work differently than needles. The larger you go with a thread, the smaller the thread gets. The larger you go with needles, the bigger the needle gets. So it's opposite. So thread gets smaller, so thinner, and needles get larger the further you go up. So that's one important difference you'll want to make note of. So if you get an 80 weight thread, you're not going to use 18 needle, you're going to want to use a smaller needle. So just keep in mind that they are different. So this is a 12 weight right here, which is Aurifil. These are all Aurifil. So it's got a red core. This is a 28 weight, which is a gray core. Their 40 weight has a green core. Their 50 weight has an orange core. And their 80 weight has a wooden spool, which is kind of fun because you guys know thread used to always come on wooden spools. So it's kind of fun to have that. Okay, so the 12 weight is a 2-ply thread. And like I said, it's on a red spool. And they recommend if you're machine stitching with this thread to use on 9014 because it is a very thick thread. And I'm going to unwind a little bit. You won't be able to see it too much, except that it is a much thicker thread, so it's definitely easier to see. This is a thread you might use for hand embroidery, hand applique, hand quilting, embellishment. You might make lace with this, do sashiko stitching, and I'm probably saying that wrong, so quilting, please don't come after me. But you could also do cross stitch with this. So the one thing that I do besides quilting, and I don't do a whole lot of it because quilting is my main thing and my passion. But when I have a little bit of time, I will do cross stitch. And I've used the Aurifil 12 weight for cross stitch before. It comes in all different colors. This is perfect for cross stitch. It's a really thick thread. I'm tugging really hard. It's not breaking. This is not one that I would recommend for quilting or piecing, just because it is so thick, but like I said, all those other uses. Now, I'm not a hand sewer. All of you know that. I've talked about that lots and lots of times. So I can't tell you which needle to use with that to hand sew. There's one further down that I did write down because I thought you guys might be interested in it, but I couldn't find any information on what size hand needle to use with this. So you'll have to figure that out on your own. I have used it, like I said, with cross-stitching needles before. I am not a hand needle expert, so I can't even tell you what that is, but you definitely can hand sew with that. So that is their 12 weight and it has a red core. So their next one is their 28 weight thread. And let me unwind it a little bit. If you guys didn't know this, the bottom of your Aurifil comes off, and that's where, of course, this one I'm having trouble with now that I said that, but that's where your thread is wound, and you can, if you can't get the end of your thread, you can take the bottom off and you can find it. So this one is definitely significantly thinner than the 12 weight, but still a really thick thread. It's a 2-ply thread, and this one is on a gray core spool. And this one, they also recommend a 9014 top stitch quilting or denim needle because it is thick. And they recommend 50 weight in the bobbin with this one. And I meant to say that about the 12 weight. They recommend a 40 weight with this one, just because you don't want to put this in the bobbin. You would have a mess on your hands. Now, that's not to say you can't. And I know somebody's going to come on here and say, I've used it in the bobbin. You might have, but that is what is recommended for the manufacturer, to use a 40 weight in the bobbin for the best results. And these are all best results. That doesn't mean you can't get good results on something you do. So uh, this is, like I said, they recommend a 90-14 top stitch or quilting or denim needle. They recommend 50 weight in the bobbin with this 28 weight. And a lot of people use this for a double strand cross stitch, which you could, or you could just buy the 12 weight, which is what I would do. You can use this for hand applique, blanket stitch, hand piecing, hand quilting. This one's great for hand quilting. The top, we're talking the top, we're not piecing. Machine lace, machine embroidery, and serging. This supposedly is really good for serging. Now, I don't own a serger, so again, I'm not the expert, but they recommend this for sergers. Okay, so that's your 28 weight. Now, these are the two that I use the most, these sizes, for quilting. And then we'll get to the 80 weight, which I also use in quilting, but for a different reason. So 40 weight is what I use in all my, pretty much not all, but pretty much all of when I quilt tops. Not when I'm piecing, but when I'm actually doing the top stitch quilting. That's what I like a 40 weight for. It's a little bit too thick for piecing, in my opinion, just because you can't get your blocks as precise and as flat. But I love it for quilting, especially when you want the quilting to show. Now, if you don't want your quilting to show, you want it to disappear, you're going to want to go to a higher weight thread, so a 50 or an 80. I've never done a quilt with an 80 weight. That's very fine. And I like my quilting to show. I feel like I'm going to do all that work. I want it to show. So I'll use a 40 or 50, but mostly 40 weight. So, and these are all 100% cotton, by the way. So we're all talking about cotton threads here. Most quilters work in cotton. Now, some do use poly, some do use cotton poly. I work in all cotton. I'm using cotton fabric, cotton batting. So I'm going to use cotton thread. Now, there are uses for polyester. If you're doing a minky backed quilt, t-shirt quilts, poly definitely works a lot better, but that's a whole nother category. These are all cotton, so this applies to the cotton thread. Okay, so the 48 weight is also a 2-ply, and it's wound on the green core. And there we go. The cap came off that one. I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to put that right back on. So this is a thicker thread than your 50 weight, but a lot thinner. I can completely feel the difference between this and the 28 that I just showed you. Aurifil has cones of 40 weight and cones of 50 weight, and the cones are also green and orange. Now, I know some of you out there are going to say, well, wait, I have a 40 weight cone from Aurifil, and it's got a yellow core. There is a 40 weight yellow cord cone from Aurifil. The 40 weight green is a 2-ply. The 40 weight yellow is a 3-ply, and the 3-ply is stronger. So that's what they recommend for long arm quilting, for those machines that are computerized and go at a high rate of speed. The 40 weight 2-ply cone is just fine if you are a free motion quilter. You aren't computerized. You're not going, a million miles an hour, pedal to the metal, which is me. So I need the yellow cone. I am a long arm quilter, and I do computerized, and I have my machine going at full speed. So the 40 weight, before I knew the difference, got a 40 weight cone of green, and it kept breaking, and I was very frustrated because I love Aurifil thread, and I couldn't figure out why until I learned the difference. So if you're a long arm quilter and you're computerized and you do high rates of speed, you're going to want to get to the yellow 40 weight cone. But the difference is, like, again, is the green is 2-ply, the yellow is 3-ply. So it's a bit stronger, and your quilting is going to show more. So that's the difference there. But as far as the small spools are concerned, the green is the 40 weight. Okay. And the 40 weight, like I said, is really good for quilting. I wouldn't recommend it in piecing, although I know some people do use it in piecing. It's just a little too thick for me. You can use it where it was recommended for bobbin. You can use it with, let me see, I'm trying to think of other uses. Embroidery. double or triple strand cross stitch, like I said before, but I would just go to the 12 weight and grab that because it's already, you know, thick. I'm trying to think of other uses, but mainly for quilting. I think the 40 weight is a great top stitch quilting thread. And you're going to want to use, or they recommend, an 80-12 needle Microtex sharp, or you can use a universal. They say 40 or 50 weight in the bobbin. Now, when I use a 40 weight, I just match it and I use 40 weight in the bobbin. But if you like the thinner bobbin, you can use 50 weight. And for a long arm, they recommend a 3.5 or a 4.0 needle for you long armers out there, and a 50 weight in the bobbin. So again, when I've done, this is what they recommend, and this is what I do differently. When I use the 40 weight for long arming, I put 40 weight in the bobbin. So, and I don't have any problems. I just use the larger size needle. So that's those. Now, their most popular thread is the 50 weight, of course, which is the orange core. So the orange core, it comes in the small spools, the large spools, and the cones. And it is all 2-ply 50 weight. Let me grab that out. And this is I can tell the difference definitely between the 40 and 50, although it's a smaller difference than these in the 40 and 50, but you can still feel the difference. It's definitely quite a bit thinner, so it's really nice for piecing. It's thick enough that your piecing is going to hold together, but thin enough that it's not going to make your blocks too small. That if you iron and press really, or you press your blocks really well, they will come out really, really nicely and flat with this thread. This is just my go-to. I use either 2024, which is the white. These are all 2024 whites right here. Or I use 2600 Dove Gray for all my piecing. I just love Aurifil. I don't have any issues with it in my machine. My Genomes love it. And that doesn't mean that other thread is not good though, because before I found Aurifil, I used Gutermann exclusively, and I really like Gutermann. I really love the way this feels. I love the way it stitches. And my machines love it. My Janome Straight Stitch High Speed did not love Gutermann thread. It broke it. I think Aurifil is spun a little bit differently and is a little bit stronger, so it held up a lot better for me. But this is definitely their most popular thread, the orange center, which is the 50 weight. And like I said, piecing, again, machine applique, machine embroidery, hand applique. You can use this for needle turn. You can use it for long arm quilting, all kinds of uses. And they recommend a 4.0 needle if you're long arm quilting with the 50 weight in the bobbin. And they recommend an 80-12 needle in your regular machine, which most of you already know that, with this thread. And you can use the Microtex sharps, which is what I use. You can use universal, a quilting needle, whatever, but an 80-12 is the most recommended. So let me put that one down. Now, this is probably the thread. I don't use these too much on the end, the smallest, or the largest ones, I'm sorry. The smallest numbers, the largest threads, except for the 12 when I do some cross stitch. I almost never use the 28. So that's very rare for me. I use these two the most, and then this would be the next one that I use the most after these two. This is our 80 weight thread, which is the thinnest thread. And I don't even know if you guys can see the thread because it's so thin. But it's very thin. It's thinner than dental floss if you're somebody who uses dental floss. It's very, very, very thin. It almost feels like just a strand of hair or a couple of strands of hair wound together. It's very thin. It breaks easier. So you don't want to use this in a high speed anything because that won't work too well. But what 80 weight is really great for, and what I use it for, is paper piecing. Paper piecing, as you know, which I have an example of paper piecing on the wall behind me, that green critter back there, is the block of the month I'm currently working on. Paper piecing is a technique where you sew through paper and your fabric, and it makes your whatever you're making come out perfectly because you're sewing right on the line. The trouble with all that paper and all your intersections coming together, because you're typically making shapes that you can't do traditionally. So you'll have a lot of angles, a lot of pieces, is that it gets really bulky and really thick. So using an 80 weight thread helps with that. So that's what I use 80 weight thread for. It's paper piecing, so it's great. Now the 80 weight only comes on these smaller spools that I know of. I've never seen it on a larger spool. I went to Aurifil's website to try to find it, and I can't find it anywhere on a larger spool. So I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure that if I am, that one of you will let me know. But I've not ever seen it on a larger spool. This is, like I said, comes on the wooden spool, so you'll know that it's 80 weight right away if it's on the wooden spool. Now they do recommend a 70-10 needle, at most an 80-12 needle, but I would definitely go down to the smaller needle. If you're doing paper piecing, you're definitely going to want a Microtex or Sharps needle to poke through that paper. You will dull your needle quicker. You're going to go through more needles, but not a lot quicker. It's not like you're going to sew one piece and have to change your needle. So, but you want to, if you're using the thread, you're definitely going to want a smaller needle because it's such a fine thread that if you had, say, put this in a 90-14, you could probably make it work, but it's not going to come out as nicely. So, and it might not work, who knows? And they do recommend the 80 weight in the bobbin with this thread. So you can use this for English paper piecing. This would be great for foundation paper piecing, hand applique, machine embroidery, although that could be troublesome because it is so thin, it might not hold up. But they do recommend it for that, machine applique, and free motion couching, which I've done some couching in the past. Not my favorite thing to do, something I probably won't ever do again. But I could see where this would be good with couching, to have a really thin thread to go through all that yarn, so, and not have the thread show. So yeah, that's about it. That's everything about thread. So again, let's go through the colors. The red is the 12 weight. The gray is the 28. The 40 weight is the green. The orange is the 50 weight. And the wooden spool is your 80 weight. And these two here, the 40 and the 50, do come in cones. The cone for the 50 is also orange. The cone for the 40 is green, unless you want the cone for long arm quilting or high-speed long arm quilting, then it will be yellow. But that's everything about thread. So I know when I first started quilting, I had no idea what all these numbers meant on here, because there's all these technical numbers that talks about, like this one says any 12, any 28 and all that. And I had no idea what any of that meant. It took a while to learn it. So if you're newer or just learning about threads, I hope this helped you in some way. So I hope you enjoyed it. All right, guys. Well, take care. And thank you for asking me about thread. I actually love thread. I'm kind of a thread junkie. I probably have enough thread to last me the rest of my quilting career. I'm an addict, I admit it. So I was excited when a few of you had asked me about different threads and what they mean, and asked me if I can make a video and explain it. So as again, like I said, this is all from a quilting standpoint, from technical, but also from my opinion. If you have different opinions, that's okay. If you like different threads, that's okay. If you don't like Aurifil, that's okay. This is just the things that I use and what I like. But what I do want to do is, if you stay with me through this whole video, is I'm going to give you one of each of these threads, a little sample pack, so you can try out all these different threads for yourself at home. So if you would like to be in the running to receive this thread, I have one set of these I'm going to give away. Just leave me a comment down below and tell me whether you like this video or not. And in about a week, I'll pull a name, and I'm happy to give this little starter set away. Know that it will be this set though, so I unwound it a little bit, but I'm happy to pass it on because I have, like I said, so much thread, it'll last me a lifetime. All right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you really soon. Bye.